So as many of you are aware, the gym is kind of like a lab to me, in so much as I love to spend time experimenting and coming up with new exercise variations. Now, sometimes I can get a little bit carried away and I try to come up with ways to utilize pieces of equipment that usually serve other purposes to see if I can't extract a little bit more versatility from them. And over the past couple of weeks, I seem to have done exactly that with a piece that has a moderate degree of utility, that being exactly what I'm sitting on, the reverse hyper. So without further ado, I figured I would give you a little bit of an impromptu video check-in, some insight into one of the triceps variations that I've been incorporating into my own training, utilizing a reverse hyper setup. A little bit too dramatic. I've had a little bit too much caffeine today. I apologize. Plates, clamps, single handle, chain, and an extra carabiner. So I realize that a lot of people are probably curious as to why I would go to such lengths to extract further versatility from a piece of equipment like the reverse hyper, which is usually intended to prioritize the lower body. And here I am MacGyvering my setup so that I can target the triceps of all things. And further, if not necessary, why I would be so intent on coming up with further exercise selections for accessory or for the triceps to add to the variety of selections that I have at my disposal. And understand that, of course, this is not necessary. However, as I have my staple triceps accessory exercises that I maintain with a much greater degree of frequency than I do others, and that I roll through my training blocks more often than others, when it comes to the accessory exercises that are not as important, I enjoy the process of experimentation. That's what makes training fun for me. And not only experimentation in so much as trying new exercise variations that I come across from other coaches, or different training strategies or structures, what may be, but also trying to come up with things myself. And it doesn't always work. Sometimes my ideas are quite silly, stupid, if you will. However, it makes training that much more interesting, to me at least. So it's not necessary from a development standpoint, but from an enjoyment standpoint, from an extraction of value relative to the process itself for me personally, it's absolutely necessary. So let's set this up. Very simple setup here. Now, technically you don't have to leave the strap on, but I will, only because I have the space to work with the strap being on. You don't need a lot of weight for this setup. Well, you might if you're super strong. I'm not, however. Weights go on just like they normally would. We'll clamp them on just so that they don't go flying off, which they probably won't, but better safe than sorry. Chain, we'll put around the strap. Now, I like to keep an extra carabiner, a larger one, only because sometimes it's a little bit more awkward to get two of them onto one attachment. So I use a bigger one, and then I loop through, and then I attach that main carabiner, that larger carabiner, directly to the handle, and voila, you now have a tricep kickback setup that not only maintains a greater degree of tension than you might otherwise find if you were trying to do, say, dumbbell kickbacks, or at least I find that the tension is maintained to a greater degree, but you also now have the ability to microload a tricep accessory exercise, which is very important considering it is a smaller muscle group. The smallest increases in load actually make an incredible difference when it comes to the total volume that you might be incorporating, and of course the intensity of effort itself, because reasonably speaking, you're not going to be lifting that much weight on this compared to, say, a squat or a deadlift. And so even adding a half a pound or 1 pound at a time is a big jump. And you normally can't do that as easily with dumbbells or with most dumbbell sets. And so this offers an alternative if you happen to have a reverse hyper or where you train has one for you to micro load accordingly. So check it out. So I grab the handle and I like to set up in a position where my chest is just about parallel to the floor, knees bend slightly. And I like to get into a position relative to the reverse hyper where the load is already creating a little bit of tension on the triceps without having extended my arm. First, because I don't want there to be slack in the chain strap setup when I bring the hand back to the starting position. So there's already a little bit of tension present, and then I'm just going to drive my arm back, fully extend at the elbow, and focus on the majority of the movement coming from the lower part of the arm, keeping the upper part of the arm as static as I possibly can, driving the knuckles back to the wall behind me, the palm of that hand up towards the ceiling simultaneously. And let me tell you, the triceps get absolutely trashed. These are deceptively difficult to a degree that I did not expect that they would be. So yeah, a little bit of an impromptu video, pulling back the curtains, showing you a bit of the behind the scenes as to how my creative mind works when it comes to experimenting with different accessory exercise variations and maximizing the versatility relative to the use of different pieces of equipment. Obviously, this particular variation does require a little bit more fine-tuning. However, generally I would say that I'm pleased because it is much more effective at targeting the triceps than I imagined it would be initially. I thought that it would require quite a bit more work to make it a viable option to maintain in my training, but I can confirm that I'm a fan and I will be maintaining it, and I'm very much drawn to the reality that I can micro load this variation. As I mentioned earlier, I love micro loading smaller muscle groups or exercises that you cannot move as significant of a load with. That being said, if you enjoyed this type of content, make sure you show the video a little bit of love, like the video, and provide some feedback if you have any for me. I would appreciate that, and I might make some more videos just like this one, should you desire.